Welcome to the Home Design Mentor channel. I'm California architect Steven Randel. Residential design fascinates me. On today's show, we'll visit Palm Springs, California, that beautiful desert city in Southern California that's full of mid-century modern architecture. Join me and documentary filmmaker and writer Hope Anderson in this last of 5 episodes about mid-century modern houses in Palm Springs, California. We'll take questions from the audience and go into more detail about what these houses mean to us. Remarkable architecture, all of it. And that's why I wanted to show you all of this today. This is something that I love. I've loved it ever since I was a little kid. This is my passion. It never gets old for me, and it never will. So thank you for listening. I'm so glad that you came to visit us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. That was great. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you all did too. I have some questions, so I'll read them. Kristen Thompson says, would you please expand a bit upon the difference between composition and form as architectural elements?
Certainly. So when I'm talking about composition, I'm talking more conceptual. When I say, okay, how are we going to solve the project? How are we going to arrange the building on the site? What is the objective of this building? What does it serve? What does it do for the occupants? And of course, this applies to any kind of building, but in this context, we're talking about houses. You know, for example, the composition of the Neutra house, it's a luxury estate. When we get down to the Wexler steel house, that's a very conservative, modest building in comparison, right? That's all about the composition. Form is the physical form, the shapes that we're using, the shape that you see of the building. The cubist form of the Neutra house, the sloped shape of the butterfly roof, the form. What does the form do for the architecture? What does the form say about the architecture? That would be the difference between composition and form.
Kristen also says, love your illustration of the modular options for the Wexler steel houses. So then we have a question from Dovana Pagowski to everyone. Where were the older / mature trees kept? Was any home designed around them?
So, so really, there's not oak trees, or there's not significant trees in this vicinity that you would be building around for the most part. Trees in this area occur in the oases of the desert, which would be in ravines and in the bottom, along creeks, and those would be palo verdes. And then there is only one type of palm tree that is actually native to the area. So really, these sites, for the most part, are just a desert landscape, fairly bare. As you've seen, some of the sites were filled with these very large boulders. I mean, what's going on in a geologic term is that Palm Springs is surrounded by very massive earthquake faults, and the mountains are being pushed up on one side and pushed down on the other side, and you have this rocky, desert landscape all around us. So it's mostly sort of desert scrub and cacti of different types and rocks for the most part, and sand.
So Claire Chu asks, did the original buyers prefer one roof type over another for the Krisel homes?
Well, that is a good question. I don't think I really know, but I do know this, is that the butterflies are highly desirable. That seems to be the most popular catchphrase and term that people seem to grab onto. I have a house designed floor plan, and that's one of my most popular, is the butterfly roof design that I have. So I don't know at the time that was the most popular. It may very well have been. I believe also it's interesting that the Alexanders owned one of them, and they owned the long butterfly. So maybe it was the butterfly at the time. Very well could be.
So let's see. Emily Wilson says the Frey house was built around a rock.
The Frey, we looked at that. Oh, the Frey House, yeah, which we didn't look at today. But Albert Frey was another architect in town, just as prominent as the rest of them that we looked at. And the Frey House is actually built up on a hillside right next to downtown. And he built the house so that if I believe it's maybe in the bedroom, if you're in the bedroom of the house, there's a large boulder and glass goes right up to it. And the boulder is part of the architecture of the house. Yes, that's correct. That house is, I have not been in it myself, but it has been on modernism tours in the past. So some of you may have even seen it.
Oh, so Emily says that was in reference to Davana's question about building around trees. So since there were no trees, it was easier to build around rocks, right? As in the Edris house.
Well, so easier to build around. I would say it's easier to build around trees.
No, but I'm saying that the rocks were more readily available than trees.
Oh, exactly. You have plenty of rocks to use in your landscape for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so another question, as is Elizabeth Heilman. Brooke Murray says, I'm curious about architecture that is being built today. How have these designs, if they have, affected the designs today?
That's a terrific question. Absolutely, they have they're in Palm Springs. There are a number of architects doing good work. There was one in particular that I think is doing some pretty remarkable projects. His name is Sean Lockyer. He has a firm with a acronym name, which I don't know off the top of my head, but Sean Lockyer is doing really nice work. He did a house just across the street from the Edris house in the past couple of years that is in ways, when you look at it, it has similar roof forms that they used on the Edris house. I think the Edris house is really special in its very pure, sort of simple way that it was done. The house that they did is they call the Schnabel house. I believe the Schnabel family own it. And it's a bit more complex. It's much larger. I think there was plenty of influence with that. Other architects in town tend to do, it's really kind of all the same reflection of this architecture. It is not exactly the same, and this is what's interesting about this, is because, you got to think about the period of time that we're talking about here. Single pane glass, cheap energy. You simply cannot do that anymore. These windows, especially in the Edris house, where they go right up to that ceiling and they look like they just disappear into that roof line. We really can't do that anymore because of the energy codes. We have very strict energy codes in California. It makes our houses much more efficient and use much less energy. But these large expanses of glass, I'm afraid, were a sort of a relic of the time.
Mary Flannery asks, how has mid-century modern influenced your work?
So I love this question. Thank you so much. So I love it all. I love everything. I'm fascinated by anything that people live in, whether it's a high rise or a condo or a house. I work mostly with single family houses, but I've done condominiums. As far as affecting the work that I do, it's a lot of the work that I have done has been remodels and additions in the San Francisco Bay Area. So what I try to do is I always try to make the addition, when it's an addition, blend into the existing structure, make it look like it's always been there. That's kind of one of my pet peeves, is to make it look like it always belonged. And I've been able to do that for the most part with most clients. There's been a couple of situations where they've insisted on doing something that I didn't really care for. And, you have to be diplomatic with people, and sometimes you have to do what they really want, which is fine. And some of the new houses that I've done, they've also been more traditional than I would say contemporary or modern architecture. Again, what I'm doing is I'm really trying to reflect the local environment in the neighborhood. Especially in the Bay Area, we have design review boards, which are quite strict. So to do something really avant-garde is sometimes not that easy. And I believe I had one project one time where that was a bit of a challenge. we had to make alterations as we went along. It did get built, but it was a lengthy and costly process. So as far as how mid-century modern affects me, it's just another branch of architecture that I find fascinating in and of itself. I have made a point of understanding all of it as much as I can and being able to appreciate all of it as much as I can. I love classical architecture. Classical architecture is a wonderful architecture. And this is my motto. All good design is timeless and deserves respect and replication. That's my motto.
So Dovana Pagowski asks, by serendipity, I am in Palm Springs as we speak by Twin Palms. How was the Indian Canyon Golf Course incorporated into the housing arrangement, before or after?
After, you mean, is the question, was it done after that development?
Right.
What was Canyons done after that development? And I believe the answer is yes. Yeah. And Krisel did a lot of those buildings in the canyons as well. I believe either Wexler or Krisel did the country club there, and I don't know off the top of my head which one it is. I want to say it's Krisel, but Krisel also did, if you're in the neighborhood, there's a place called the Ocotillo Lodge. That was done by Krisel, and it was done before the Twin Palms Estates. And what they did is they used the Ocotillo Lodge, and people would come and stay there, and they would advertise in the lodge for the development, which is right behind that hotel. So interesting tidbit there, Palm Springs history.
This is from Mary Flannery. I think she missed the beginning. Have you lived in Palm Springs, and where do you live now?
So I have lived in Palm Springs for 14 years. I came here from the San Francisco area. I lived in San Francisco the last time before I came here. I lived there for 20 years. And I live in South Palm Springs in a neighborhood that they call Area B Commons. If you know Palm Springs at all, there is the famous John Lautner designed Edris Elrod House and the John Lautner designed Hope Residence, which looks like a flying saucer up on the top of the hill. I live right below that. And what's interesting is I live in a newer development, and it is what I call Mexican modern. And this development was really it follows the design aesthetic of two well-known mid-century modern Mexican architects, Luis Barragan and Ricardo Legarreta. And so it's our development has all of our houses are different colors. We have red, green, brown, white, orange. It's really quite remarkable. And I love living here because it's a very unique place. There's not any other place like it nearby.
Any other questions? I guess we can wrap it up unless you want to say something else, Steve.
I'm grateful to have had the chance to share my passion with your listeners. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Follow me on my websites and YouTube channel and social media accounts. Cheers, my friends.